Hello, everybody. Good morning. And it's been a minute since I've been with you guys. And just wanted to bring you guys a video today about a subject that I've been thinking about and drawing some parallels. And I'm hoping that this will be an encouragement to you. Who knows if it's actually true or not, but we can definitely hope so. We do know that as we progress here in the world, that we get closer and closer to the Lord Jesus coming back, and hopefully 2024 will be the year. I'm really optimistic that this will be the year. You guys know that I've talked about before. We are coming close to the end of the 6,000 years, and for those of you that have not been on here, 6,000 years is what has been determined for this for mankind. Before the millennial reign of Christ, right? We live it every week, right? 6 days God worked, seventh that He rested, and so we will enter his rest in that seventh day, which is the millennial kingdom and mankind. You've been lied to in school. This earth hasn't been here millions of years. Mankind hasn't been here millions of years. We weren't cavemen. We didn't come from monkeys. We came from God. We are created beings. And this world has been around since Adam. For mankind has been around since Adam for about coming up on 6,000 years, somewhere around the before the 2033 time frame. So any time between now and the between 2030 and 2033 time frame. So that's where we're at. And I just want to encourage you with this, because everything in the Bible and what we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to be scattered all over the place because you know how good I prepare for this stuff. But what I'm going to be talking about is the parallel between now and when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, and him being what they consider to be 4 days late, and how we know that the Bible uses typography all through the Bible, That's how we know, right, that we're coming to the end of the 6,000 years, and we know that we're going to go into the millennial reign of Christ. The typography of our week, the typography of how the tabernacle and the temple were set up, right, in 40 cubits and 20 cubits, right? And that there was a veil between the 40 and the 20, right? Where Jesus came into he came into the world. I mean, he was actually, the lights were created on the fourth day. Jesus came into the world on the fourth day, that 4,000th year when he died on the cross. The veil was torn. We passed through the veil, and now we're in the Holy of Holies, which is the 20 cubits, right? So we're in that church age, that 20 cubits, right? And then we're going to go into that seventh, which is the millennial reign of Christ. And so God uses typography. So if you're reading the Bible, it's really interesting is anytime God puts numbers in there, you need to be paying attention, because in the Bible, there is nothing there that is not there for a reason. Jesus said not one jot nor one tittle would pass from this law until all of it be fulfilled. And so if we go back and look at this, I've never seen a parallel with this for the 4 days, right? The reason why you've got to sit here and think about, and it's always not bothered me, but it's always piqued my curiosity why Jesus actually waited 4 days. Why did Jesus wait 4 days? He could have just went 1 day. I mean, it would have been just as much a miracle if Lazarus would have been in the tomb for 1 day, right? But he waited and he got there and he was 4 days late. Well, they thought he was 4 days late. He was right on time. But let's look at the parallels here. Let's read the story. Let's look at some of the parallels. Let's talk about it and see if you see any relation to what we're living in today and the times we're living, and how the relevance of that 4 days could mean that 2024 is actually the year that the Lord Jesus is coming back to rapture his church. Okay. So we're in John chapter 11, the death of Lazarus. All right. Let me share. All right. Here we're sharing. Okay. So we're in John chapter 11, the death of Lazarus. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. And I think this is interesting. Keep that sickness. And I want you to think about Lazarus as the church and or the world, right, as a picture of the world. Lazarus being a picture of the world or a picture of the church, or a picture of God's creation, right? And think about this time at getting sick as being, we all know what started back in this country in March of 2020, right? March of 2020. So keep that in your mind. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. So if we were taking that analogy, we could say, now the world named God's creation was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. So we could think of this as, for me, I'm thinking, okay, what if, it's like, the angels are here to serve us, right? And they come and they serve us, but they can go back, they're back and forth, and they go to the Lord and say, hey, the world is sick, because we know what happened in 2020. When he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. So we all know what happened, right? Back in 2020. And I just think I'm just drawing parallels here. Maybe true, maybe not. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. This is the part that really interests me, right? Because he didn't have to do that, right? I mean, like, if he left right then, he still wouldn't get there like in an hour. It's not like he was an hour away. He was a couple of days away. He was a couple of days or more away from where Lazarus was. So he could have left right then. Lazarus would have still died. Lazarus would have still been in the tomb. But Jesus being all-knowing and God being all-knowing and setting up all the things that God is setting up, right? That there was a purpose for this. And Jesus starts talking about that in a moment. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. And then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. Now, I want you to... All right, this is like, when I read this now, looking back, like, we wouldn't have been able to see this 20 years ago. We wouldn't have been able to see this 10 years ago. We wouldn't even be able to see this 3 years ago, but we can see it now when we're looking at it, right? So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. And then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. So let's just say that he's telling the church, right? Like, he's in heaven. He's like, hey, let's go back to the earth. Let's go back to the earth. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago, the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you are going back. Right? So, hey, didn't these Jews try to kill you? Like, didn't these people try to kill you? And now you want to go back? And this one's weird to me. The Lord hasn't really given me any kind of thing on this. And I'm just like, it seems out of place, but because it's out of place, I know that that's got a really, really good meaning. I just don't know what he's talking about here. And Jesus answered that like, they were like, hey, didn't they try to kill you? Like, they tried to kill you and you want to go back? And Jesus answered and said, are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by the world's light. It is when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light. And I was like, okay, that's really not, I mean, I know if I was one of the disciples, I'd be registering it, but I'd be like, I'm almost too embarrassed to say, Jesus, that makes no sense whatsoever, like, to what I just said. It's like, I say, hey, they tried to kill you. You really want to go back? And you're like, hey, you guys want to pick up some hot dogs on the way? It just doesn't make sense as an answer to that question. But after he had said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. And his disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Now, going right back to being his disciples, the ones he's talking to, being the world, right? The world, his church, things like that. He's saying, hey, but for your sake, when this thing started, I'm glad that I was not there, because if I was there, then, he would have already had healed Lazarus, and there wouldn't have been that resurrection. There wouldn't have been this, there wouldn't have been this miracle. There wouldn't have been this thing that has been set up. And even speaking to us today, if he had been here, 4 days ago, 4 years ago, right, then, many would not have believed. I mean, there has been tons of people come to Christ over the last 4 days, 4 years. Then Thomas, I mean, we are right now from that time, you guys realize we are 3 years and 11 months. Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. I mean, these guys literally have they are with the Lord, the one they seen do all kinds of miracles. They've seen this guy walk on water, all of this, and they're like, Thomas is like, okay, let's go. We'll die with him. It'll be fine. Um, oh, ye have little faith. All right. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Right. So they had, so he's been there 4 days. So now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in their loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. I think this is very interesting, because if this is true, there's a lot of parallels that can be met through this, right? Like both Martha and Mary are both believers, but when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him. But the Lord, right, then, also calls for Mary at some point. But I think it's very interesting that he didn't actually come all the way back. He didn't make it all the way to Jerusalem. He didn't go all the way into Jerusalem at this point. He only came within 2 miles of it. And when Martha heard that he was coming, she came out to meet him. But Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Right? We could say, well, Jesus, if you'd have been here, we wouldn't have had to go through all this crazy that we had to go through. But I know that even now, God, you will give, I'm tongue-tied, but I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. I just think it's funny that they're even talking about the resurrection of the last day. We're there. We're almost there. They were talking about it 2,000 years ago, but we're almost there. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. No one who believes in me will live, even the one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? I love this. And the one who ever lives by believing in me, the one who lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and is asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now, Jesus had not entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus had saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see. Come and see. Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? You've always got these people, right? Like after the rapture happens and the people that see it happen, right, that are still really unbelievers, but believe they're, it's like, hey, yep, Jesus took them, but they'll be mocking and they'll be like, well, if he's God and he was able to rapture all these people, could he not have just come and fixed this whole world like it is today and done things a whole lot differently, and we not have went through all of the things that we had went through, and we wouldn't be in World War, and none of those bad things would have actually happened, right? That's what they'll be saying, because they don't know the ways of God. They don't know the things of the Lord. So Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. I like this also as a reference to what's happening in this day, right? So many of us Christians, especially living in America. I can't speak of other countries because I don't live in other countries and I haven't lived that life, and I don't understand that life, and I don't understand the culture they've lived in, and I don't understand the challenges they've been through. The only thing that I can understand is the life that I've lived and the culture that I've lived in and grown up in. And many of us Christians, I can speak for us because, I'm a Christian and I was a Christian before 2020, and I've been a Christian since the 90s. And so, here we were living our life, and we were all feeling pretty good about ourselves, doing our, different mission work and good works, and going to work and raising our families and doing the things that we do and listening to our gospel music. And then in 2020, all hell broke loose, and, it changed a lot of people, and changed a lot of attitudes. And just like the Bible said, for the abundance of bad things that are going on, the love of many have waxed cold, and that is true. And this can be taken as that. It's like, Jesus come back and he's like going to raise him up from the dead, but it's like, these guys have been going through hell for like 4 years. Most of them have PTSD at this point, and they pretty much stink, and we're going to bring them all up here to heaven and do what with them, right? And the Lord's being like, then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? I think God's got the ability to fix that, right? I think that even though we all stink right now, and it seems like, God's coming back for some stinky people. If we believe, we will see the glory of God. He's gonna fix it. So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Yeah, that's what's going to happen at the resurrection, right? So for those that are dead in Christ, which rise first, It's just like, come on, come out. Hey, get those grave clothes off of them. They don't need them no more. Let him go. Let them go. We need to be free. Even for us, this is, we're dead, right? They say, we're already dead men walking. These are grave clothes to us. We are not free in what we are stuck, right? In what we're in right now. And we're going to be freed from that. So how I look at this and how it parallels is, many of us in the prophecy community that have been watching these things for a long time believe that Jesus should have already come. Most of us believe that he should have come back in 2020 or just prior to 2020. And now, my view, and I know the view of a lot of folks that are in the prophecy community, is if they were really honest, they would look at this and be like, yeah, Jesus is about 4 days late here. Like, where is he at? Where is he at? Is he coming? Like, well, no, we know he's coming, but it's like, come on, like, you're 4 days late here. We wouldn't have had to go through all this if you had not been late. And I think that this is a really good link between like typography wise, because I don't see any other links to this anywhere. This is clearly a link to the end times. It's clearly a link to the resurrection of the last day, right? Lazarus meaning God who helped, right? God who helped is the meaning of Jesus, Lazarus' name. God of help, help of God, right? And so this is clearly a link to that. And so I think it was really interesting that, Jesus was 4 days late when he didn't have to be. He did this on purpose. He did this for a reason. And I think that in this last day, when he says, well, for your sakes, I did this. And I think that if we look at that, and we know right now when we get disheartened and we think, where are you at, Jesus? Where are you at? Even though we know in our hearts that we're going to come to the end of this 6,000 years. We're not getting out of here before the end of the 6,000 years, right? Jesus died on the cross on that 4,000, 2,000 mark. Exactly. And so we are also going to come out at exactly that time, whenever it's time, right there at that time. That's when this is all going to wrap up. Jesus died on the cross. He was in the grave for 2 days, 3 days. He rose from the grave on the third day, at the beginning of the third day, right? So this is another typography of, the 2,000 and the 1,000, right? He's going to reign on the earth, for that millennia, right? That 1,000 years, that's your third day. But right after that 2 days is over, we are going to be raised. He was raised up, right, to be preeminent over all things. So he'd be the first one raised. So it's also typography. So we're here at the end, but this is encouraging us because we consider that he's 4 days late. And guess what? We're about to be in that fourth day. We're about to be in that fourth day coming up here, in less than a month or so. And so, hey, I think that's encouraging. You guys tell me what you think in the comments. Have a good day. Oh, and before I let you go and say have a good day, if you're watching this and you don't know Jesus Christ, you need to know him because, listen, time is short. We are coming up to the end. And when I say we're coming up to the end, and that's that 2030, 2033, you don't need to be looking for the 2030, 2033. You need to be looking for that you got a 7-year tribulation ahead of us. None of us want to live through that. You want to believe in Jesus Christ and I think you want to believe in by some of this sayings, right? Like Martha went out to meet him and Mary stayed at home. We don't know. The Bible don't give us a lot of information, But I would want to believe in the rapture. I would want to believe in that blessed hope. I would want to know that Jesus is coming back, and I would want him to know that he's coming back. Right? It's like that. The parable of the 10 virgins. They were all there. They were all waiting for the wedding. They were all wanting. But some of them didn't have their lamps full. So you want to make sure that you believe in Jesus Christ. It's very easy. It's very good news. He died for us all, right? I mean, back in the day, the high priest would have to, kill an animal and pour the blood on the mercy seat to cover the sins of the nation. And he would have to do that every single year. But Jesus became our high priest, and he died once and for all, and his blood was shed once and for all of our sins. And all we have to do is believe in it. And Paul said it like this. It's just like when Moses fashioned the serpent on the pole and lifted it up. And if the people of Israel, whoever looked on the pole and believed that they would be healed from the snake bites, were healed. Those who would not look on the pole and did not believe died from the snake bites. And just like that, Jesus is lifted up on that pole, right? He became that sin debt for us. And if we look upon that, if all we have to do is look upon that and believe in it, and then we are saved. It's that simple, and it's that good news. You don't got to go out and change your life. You don't go out and fix everything that's wrong with you. You don't have to do all of that. Heck, you don't even have to maintain it. Jesus does it all. You just believe in him, love him, and he will change your paradigm. You will change your mind, and you'll do different things. You'll do different things different ways, and you'll be saved. And maybe you'll go in the rapture of the church this very year. You could go in the rapture of the church in less than a month. Maybe the summer, maybe in the fall. You could be living in heaven in a resurrected body where you don't have to worry about health insurance, phone bills, light bills, getting cancer. You won't have to worry about your kids getting kidnapped on the playground. I mean, there's just all kinds of good benefits for believing in Jesus and loving him. But it is a true story. And catch my next video, because I'm going to do a video on Obadiah 1, and I'm going to show you clearly that we are literally living in that prophecy today, right now, that was spoke 2,000 something years ago. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Have a great day.